it's Brand Ambassador Cal here, and I want to talk to you about my project for this month. I've been given the amazing challenge to level up a previous album or kit card class or something along those lines, and I have chosen to make my own spin on a previous album class, which you can download all of the instructions for this class off the Graphic 45 blog, and I will put a link to that in the comments or in the information box. Now, this is the Couture album. The original was just one of the prettiest albums I've ever seen. It's beautiful, and it's got so many little extras in it that it just caught my eye. But the base of it is actually the Graphic 45 ready-made Trifold Folio, which is something that I've had in my stash for a little while, and it's just the cutest little folio that you've ever seen. Here's the I don't know what you'd call it, the slip that goes around it, so you know what you're looking for if you want to make this too. It's got the most amazing magnets on. Don't know where you get them, Graphic 45, but these are the most amazing magnets that I've ever come across. And it's a nice square 7.5 inches pretty much all the way round, and it folds out 3 times. Now, I wanted to add a few bits to mine and change it a little bit. So as I go through and explain to you what I've done, you'll see that I've changed a few bits. So following this introduction, I will take you through each bit that I changed and what I did. So thank you to Graphic 45 for this amazing little folio, but here is mine. Now, I've used Twas the Night Before Christmas. I've used a 12 by 12 Deluxe Collector's Edition. This is very close to my heart, this paper, because it's Christmas and various other reasons as well. But what I've actually done on the front of my cover is, it's so difficult to show you this, but I've actually taken, because you get 3 signature sheets, I've actually taken the three main images off the signature sheet, and I have built those up so that when you look at it, you've got this really lovely 3D image that just catches your eye as soon as you look at the book. On the side, what I've done is I've made a little charm out of the some of the chipboard pieces, and I'll show you how I've done that in my class as well. Now, my folio is a little bit different to how it started, because I've actually expanded mine. I've made it wider. Originally, I think they're about 1.25 inches thick, but when I open it up and show you, I wanted to put a shaker pocket inside mine, which meant that I then ended up with alligator mouth, which Mark calls croc gob, you know, when it all kind of opens and doesn't sit flat. So I didn't want that for this album, because one of the things that I love about the pre-made Graphic 45 album is that it's very clean, it's very straight, it's very put together beautifully, and mine didn't sit like that. So I've actually extended the sides of mine, made it bigger, and I will show you how I did that in the video that's going to come after this. So I'll tell you why there isn't a shaker on the front when you watch the rest of it, but basically the shaker on mine is on the inside. So I've got a couple of some of the cutter parts here that I've just mounted onto some black cardstock, but my shaker pocket is here. So I'm going to show you how I've made my shaker pocket and why it's not on the front in the video. And I've got a little tuck spot here that I've just put a couple of these absolutely gorgeous images from the collection in. Now, here on this side, I've used, this is exactly the same as it is when you get it. You've got a nice little corner pocket. I've just made a few little photo mats just to go in there. I've added some of the stickers in, and then of course there's some of the cutter parts as well that I've just popped in there, because there's so many gorgeous images on this collection that I couldn't leave any out. So there's my shaker, and I open that up, and here is once again where I was slightly deviated, and this is the pocket. If you've had one of these, you'll know that there is actually a nice big square pocket that opens from the top here, and this is where I loved the Couture album, because on the Couture album there's actually a pocket here which I've added onto mine as well, which has got then this kind of flippy pulley outy bit, so I've stayed quite faithful to it in that respect. I've just done it a slightly different size in a slightly different way. So here on the front I've just matted some of the cutter parts, and I've just used those as a little pocket just to pop in some of the cutter parts, and then these go into the pocket that I made earlier on. And like I said, that is quite faithful to this original Couture folio here. Now what I've also done is I've made these pockets here with photo mats, and that's the same on both sides of this pocket. So here once again you've got that bit that I mentioned from the other side, but here this piece, this actually, if I can do it, this actually comes out of the middle as well. So this is a little pull apart piece, so you can see here very much the original shape of the pocket, and here I've just got some cutter parts that I've put in there with photo mats, and then this middle leg, if you like, that's the bit that sits in the middle there, and in my class after this I go through and I show you how I put that together. Then here what we've got are two beautiful waterfalls, and I have done nothing with these because you can't, they're just so lovely. Got the absolutely amazing, who doesn't love that noise? It's got the most amazing magnets on these waterfalls, and then I have just added some white card in lieu of photographs, and then I've just, you can put cutter parts and all sorts of things on these, but I didn't want to overdo it because these papers are so gorgeous, so Christmassy. I just didn't want to spoil. You just can't improve on perfection, can you? So that is those are my two waterfalls, and that is my Trifold folio. So probably the biggest thing that I've done to it is the fact that I took it apart because I wanted to make it less crock gobby. Hold on, let me pop this back in. But like I said, in my video I take you through what I've done to make this my own. So that just slips, she says, into there, and we've got those on both sides, and then here we've got our nice shaker pocket. Love that, you can't get enough of a shaker. Little tuck spot there for a couple of little cutter parts, and then back to the front, and this, I wish you could see it because it's just not done it justice. And then I've put some little bits on the side, and then just some of the pattern paper on the back. So I hope you like my little folio. I have to say I love it. I love it because I love these papers, I love Christmas, and I just love this Trifold folio. It's one of the nicest books that I've ever worked with. So hold on 2 ticks and I will take you through bit by bit how I made the rest of it. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you guys really soon. Bye. So currently I am butchering my beautiful Graphic 45 Trifold folio. I know. Bear with me, trust the process. But if you're going to follow along and make this version, then you're going to have to see what I'm doing. So I want to put a shaker on here, but as much as I love this, it's kind of like 3D'd up Santa that I've got, I know that if I start putting sequins with him inside a shaker, the sequins are all going to get stuck on these bits that are all laid up, and I don't want that for him because he's better than that. But I really want to put him on the front of my cover, so I still want my shaker. So what I've decided to do is put my shaker pocket in here, but 2 little issues. Firstly, that had a magnetic closure, and secondly, I'm going to need a bit more height because my shaker pocket is going to be twice this height, and it's quite thick chipboard that I'm using. So here's my solution. I have taken this pocket off here. Okay, it's going to go back, but just for now I've taken the pocket off here. I'm not worried that I've made a bit of a mess of that because it's all going to be covered. here was a magnet, which is this magnet, which I've taken off and I've got it here. And then there is a magnet under here, this part of the book. So what I've done is I've just lifted that cardstock and I've taken out this magnet. Now I have to tell you that these are pretty much the best magnets that I have ever come across. They're absolutely phenomenal. So we might not be using them on this, but my goodness am I keeping them, because they are absolutely brilliant. So that's my book, that's good, that's all ready, but I want to raise this up so that I'm not, because these butt up against each other here, I'm going to need a bit more space just on this side for me to add in more height for my shaker. So bear with me, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the front cover off. Now here, if you open up your folio, you've got this bit, but I am going to cut directly down here and cut this off. So let me just line this all up. And now, oh, hey, I hope this works. I have a plan. So that now is my folio taken to pieces for the time being. So what I can do now is get on, I can make my shaker, and then I can come back to my front cover later on. And you're not going to see any of these cuts and joins and lines by the time that I've finished. So it will look great. Just trust me on this. So what I want to do now is talk about this page inside the folio, which is the pocket page. Now in the original, there is a lovely little pocket that goes on here with an insert. I'm going to make my pocket slightly differently because I always like to make mine out of cardstock, and there is plenty of room for play with the amount of space that you get here, which is lovely. So what I've done to make my pockets, because I'm going to put one on the front and one on the back, I have cut them at 8 by 6.5 inches, and I've cut 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to score on the 8-inch side at 1/2 inch and at 7.5 inches, and then I'm going to score on the 6.5 inch side at 1/2 inch, and that is the same on both pieces. So I'm going to score on the 8-inch side at 1/2 inch, at 7.5 inches, and then I'm going to score on the 6.5 inch side at 1/2 inch. Now what I like to do next when I'm making a simple pocket is to miter the corners of my pocket here. See this little square? Well, we need to get rid of that. Now you could cut straight across, but I find sometimes if you do that you get a bit of a bulge in your cardstock. So my tip is snip up to where the score lines intersect, change the angle of your scissors slightly and cut it so it's not straight across, but you've got a bit of a kink in it. And I want you to do that on both pieces. So snip up to where the score line intersects, change the angle and cut off that corner there because we don't need it. So once you've done that, if you just fold on these flaps like that, and burnish, so you've got a really nice sharp edge. Always looks nicer, I think. Easier to stick down. Let's do the same on this one. And then I'm going to take my mini and I'm going to glue one of these on each side. Now you will notice that if I put my pocket onto the very bottom and the very, let's go for right hand edge here, there is a little bit of a gap between where the pocket meets the spine and my pocket. That's absolutely deliberate because it just gives us a little bit of space to stay flat. If we go and butt this up this way, right up to the edge, it's going to kind of cause trouble when we want to open and close our our pockets. So that's why there is a gap there. Don't be horrified by it or think that you've cut wrong. You haven't. I've left it there for a particular reason. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go off and decorate, and then we'll come back and we'll look at the insert, which I'm going to tweak too. Okay, so we've got our shaker pocket, and we'll probably come back and do some more decorating to that in a bit, but I want to take a look at inside. Now, I have done my waterfalls, these two, and we'll come back and have a look at those later. But what I want to talk about is this pocket here. I love this pocket. There's plenty of space in here to put all sorts of bits and pieces. But what I've decided to do is I have followed the original, because the idea of putting a pocket on here is absolutely brilliant. I've just made my own pocket, as you know, but what I want to do is I want to put in some extra bits and pieces. So what I've got here in this big pocket is I've got a pull out, which we can put lots of photos on, and then in the middle I'm going to have a double pull out. Now I've part made this already, but I will go through it in a moment. And what I've done is I've got a little pocket here on the front that I can just put some photo mats in. This is the piece that's going to slip into our pocket, and then we need to put this again on the back. Now I've already cut some bits out, so if I just take you through this one first of all, what you need to do is you need to cut 2 pieces for each of the slip-in inserts, and I want you to cut 2 at 6.5 by 7 and 2 at 6.5 by 6.5. Now what we're going to do is we're going to score on the 6.5 by 7 inch piece, and we're going to score on the 7 inch side, so that means putting the 7 inches up at the top here. And no doubt I have now lost my embossing tool. Yep, I'll use this one. So I'm going to score on the 7 inch side at 1/2 inch. Okay, simple. If I then fold on that score line, burnish it really well, I can then pop some glue inside that fold there. A little bit of wet glue on there. And I'm going to put this piece, I'm going to butt it right up to where the score line is on my flap, and I'm going to fold that over and make sure that it all lines up, so that I've essentially got I guess like a card really. So that folds like that. Obviously if you've got 12 by 12 paper, all you need to do is just cut it at actually that's not going to work, is it? Because that's 6.5 square. No, you'd have to use 2 pieces. And I'm going to decorate those up in the same way so that mine match both on the front and the back. Okay, so I love this paper. So I'm going to decorate that up. Now this piece, what we've got here is we need to have two different size for the actual bulk of the insert. So the first one that we need to cut is 6.5 inches across again, and then that is 6.5 inches down. So I'm just going to cut mine down a little so that it's 6.5 by 6.5. Let's just check. 6.5 by let's cut some more. So I'm going to have one piece that is 6.5 by 6.5, and this is my central piece that actually slots into my book. So that is this piece here. Okay, I've already put mine on, but that is that piece there. Then what we need to do is cut this, and for this particular insert we're going to need 2 at 6.5 by 7. Now I've already cut mine, and this one is 6.5 by 7, so I need to score on that. And then I need my pocket, and the pocket size that you need is 7.5 by 3.5 inches. So 7.5 by 3.5 inches. Now if I get my scoreboard, what I'm going to do is these two pieces that we've got that are 7.5 by 6.5 or 6.5 by 7.5. What we're going to do first of all is we are going to score on the 7.5 inch side. Let me just check that. No, that's too long. It should be 7 inches at 1/2 inch. Let me just cut that down a minute. So it's 6.5 inches, 7 inches even. So this piece, we're going to have two that are 7.5 by 6.5. 6.5 is the width, and we're going to put our score line at 1/2 inch on the 7 inch side. Okay, then we have got two of these pieces which are our pocket pieces, and these are 3.5 by 7.5, and what I want you to do is score on the 3.5 inch side at 1/2 inch, and then on the 7.5 inch side at 1/2 inch and at 7 inches, and that is exactly the same on both of them. So what I'm going to do now is, first of all, I'm going to mitre this corner of the pocket. Just chop off that corner there, put a kink in it so that it doesn't get all bulgy. And I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to fold on the score line there, and then I'm going to fold on these score lines too, just to make my simple pocket. Okay, so what I've done here is I've taken my back piece. This is the piece that doesn't have any scoring at all. Okay, and I'm going to attach one of my flaps to the top front and one to the top back. So I've already done that. I've attached one flap to the top front, and now I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to attach this flap to the top back. Like that. Line it up. There we go. Okay, so now what I've got is basically a three-pronged booklet, and this middle bit, that's the bit that is going to slip into our big pocket. So now this little pocket that I've got here, if I just burnish these corners just to make it really flat, I'm going to put some glue, take that, put some glue onto these flaps here. Like that, and I'm going to attach this to the bottom of each outside flap like that. So now I'm going to decorate this side up so that it matches this side, and what I've done here on the front as well is I've taken one of the cutter parts and I've simply matted it onto some black cardstock, and then I've put it over the top of my pocket, and then I'm going to make some little photo mats to go in the back there. So I'm going to go off and decorate these two, and then I'll come back and I'll show you what I've done. Okay, so I've made my flap pieces, as you can see here. Really happy with those, but something's caught my eye. When I close this up now, that alligator mouth that I was worried about at the beginning, which is why I took this piece off, is kind of happening here now. So I don't want this book to look like that, because one of the beautiful things I think about these Trifold Folios is that they are clean and sharp cornered. So what I'm going to do is butcher mine a little bit more. So I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to take my knife, and I am going to cut all the way down this bit here. So here, where I've got, this is the spine piece, this piece here, I'm going to cut that in half. So be very careful when you do this. because you sure don't want to be cutting your fingers off. In fact, I'm going to use my safety ruler. Mark's not here to shout at me, but you know. Okay, so let's just have a look here. I am going to cut right down the middle here. So essentially what I'm doing is I am cutting the spine of the folio in half, like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is build my book back up. I want it to look exactly the same, I just don't want the bulges, so I need to add, I reckon, about ½ inch to that spine, about ½ inch there, and probably about the same to that spine. So what I'm going to do first of all is I'm just going to measure how big the original spine was. That's centimetres, let me get my ruler. So that is approximately 1.25 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get myself some of my greyboard and I'm going to cut 2 more spines. Instead of cutting them at 1.25 inches, I am going to cut them at 1 inch and 3/4. Let me just check that that is going to fit nicely. So I reckon 1 3/4 inches on that side, and then that side that might need a little bit more. No, that should be all right. 1 3/4 inches on both sides. So I'm going to cut myself 2 pieces 1 3/4 inches by the height of my folio, which is 7.5. So I'm going to cut those out and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've got my 2 spine pieces. I've got the left hand side, which is 1 3/4 inches by 7.5, and I've cut the right hand side one slightly shorter at 1.5 times 7.5, because the way that it goes together, we need the top, the kind of the front cover to be slightly higher to compensate for our shaker pocket. So what we're going to do now with these 2 pieces is we are simply going to cover them in the black cardstock. So I like to put a little bit of double-sided tape just to hold it in place, and all I'm going to do is pop this into the middle of there like that, that into the middle of there like that. I'm going to mitre my corners, and then I'm going to fold these over and I'm going to cover them completely. So what I've got are covered spines that look like that. And like I said, the left hand side piece is 1 3/4 inches, the right hand side piece is 1.5. So once you've done that, we'll come back and we'll attach them to the spines of our original Trifold folios, just so that it sits a little bit better and we don't get alligator mouth. Okay, so I've got all the pieces of my book here, and what I need to do first of all is to prep my pieces. So as you can see here where I've cut on this edge, you can see that I've got a open kind of cardstock bit where you can see the colour of the greyboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some black tape and I'm just going to cover that round. You could paint it if you wanted, you could use a Sharpie, you could use a bit of cardstock to fold over, but I'm just going to take some of this tape that I've got and I'm going to fold it over like that, so that that edge now looks nice and neat and tidy. Let's just chop those ends off. And some scissors that aren't covered in gunk. And I'm going to do the same to each one of those edges. Now there will be 4 in total, because we've got the front cover, the kind of the middle bit, and then the back as well. So here is my front cover that I took off originally. As you can see, I've taken off at this point, I've taken off the pocket that goes there, but I am going to put that back. Okay, so let's just prep this. Fold that over. Okay. Okay, so that's my front cover. And now I'm going to do the same with these 2 pieces as well. So here, like I said, you can see that I've got the open bit where you can see the greyboard. Bit short, that piece, that wasn't the right one. Let's have that one. Let's fold that over. Stick that together, not good. Oh, it's goodness sticky, this tape. Okay, so that's got a nice tidy edge, and then finally this one, again there you can see that that's open. So let's pop that tape on there like that and fold it over nice and tidy. nice sharp corner. And then finally this one. Okay. So, what I'm going to do first of all, I shall just take that out while I do this, is here I've got my board. I'm going to just cover that with a bit of tape in the middle. You could cover this with pattern paper if you wanted to. It'll give you, when you look at it, you know, down the middle, it'll give you a nice kind of, I don't know how to describe it really, a strip, I suppose, that you could see. And what I'm going to do with this is I am going to glue it onto this bit here. So here, you can see I've got this part of my spine. So I am going to take my wet glue and I am going to attach this brand new spine to the old spine, and I'm going to glue it directly on top here, like that. Okay, so that is going to fit directly over the top of the old spine. And whilst that's drying, I'm just going to use a couple of my clips just to hold that in place. I'm going to go over the other side and I'm going to do exactly the same with the second spine piece that I've got. So I'm going to start off let's just add a little bit of tape down the middle. Put some glue on the spine like that. Plenty of glue. A little bit more glue down there. I think I need a new bottle of glue. And let's pop that on top of that one like that. Line it up, make sure that it sits perfectly. And then I'm going to just stick a couple of clips on that. And very importantly, I'm going to leave this quite a while to dry, because I want this to be bone dry before I start the next piece. So I'm just going to get rid of any excess glue. And now I've got my new spines on either side, and I'm going to leave those to dry now. Okay, so on the left hand side I have got the spine that is 1 3/4 of an inch wide, and on the right hand side I have got the spine that I made that was 1 1/2, I think. Yeah, 1 1/2 inches wide, and we've attached that spine on there like that on the outside. Now what I need to do is attach this part onto that spine there. So this is the piece with my shaker, and that is going to attach here onto the top of this new spine on the right hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some glue here on the existing spine, the one that we cut up and then half covered. So let me just put some glue on there. Okay, I need plenty, not too much, but plenty. Oh, let's just make sure that's covered. I hate having gluey fingers. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this to the inside of the spine, the new spine at the top. So all we've done is we have just made our spine a little bit wider. So let me just attach that there, so you can see here, I think, that what you've got is this 1/2 inch gap now, which is how much wider our new spine is than the original spine. So now I've got that where I want it to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my clips in, and I'm going to leave that to dry. So one of the things I really love about Graphic 45 paper is the amount of images that you get. So this is the 12 by 12 Twas the Night Before Christmas signature sheet, and I've got 3 of these, which is just perfect for layering up, which is what I'm doing on the front cover of my album here. And I thought what I'd do to start with is just show you how I layer up. So just to save a bit of time, what I've done is I've taken this image from the very front, which let's look at that as the main image, and I have fussy cut around it. I've either used my scissors, or in these little tricky bits I've used a really sharp knife blade to cut out. And then what I've done is I've chosen various bits of the image that I think kind of stand out or would be closer towards you if this was a real thing, if you see what I mean. And then I've cut those out too. Plus a few other like bits and pieces, because I kind of work it out as I go along really what I'm going to put where. So finally what I did was I just went over the edges here, I don't know if you can see that too well, with just some ink. Just ink the edges to make them really stand out. If you've got any really little fiddly bits, you can always use like the edge of a Sharpie or something, but I do like the definition that that gives. So I'm as excited as you are to see how this turns out, because all I've done is cut my bits out. I don't know how it's going to look all 3D'd up, so let's get started. What I do is I take my images and I build them up, and I use chipboard, greyboard. You can use foam pads obviously, but I get into such a mess with foam pads and everything just ends up sticky, that I just like to use chipboard. And one of the reasons as well is that it kind of it's solid, isn't it? So it gives you like a really solid background. So all I do is I just take off cuts of chipboard, because you know, making albums there's always bits of chipboard hanging about. And then I just cut out bits and then just layer up bits of chipboard on the back of my images. It doesn't have to look tidy because you're never going to see it. Just has to do the job. So if I put that, let's just chop that down a little. Pop that there, and I think we can put this bit over this side there. Let's cut a piece to go there, and I think I want a little bit for there. and a bit for there, because I'm just thinking about where I'm going to be kind of, you know, adding extra bits where I might want a little bit more security. So I've just added some greyboard onto that like that. Stick some glue on the back, and now I'm going to start layering up. So I'm going to take this whole image, this is my base image, and I'm just going to layer this on top directly onto that original image there. Okay, so already I've got my Santa who is starting to pop up out of my page, and I know this never looks on film or video as good as it does in real life. So now I've got this bit of Santa. I've got his hand, and I've got his belly, because best bit. And I'm gonna do exactly the same with that. So let's pop. Now, the thickness of greyboard or chipboard is entirely up to you. I'm using 1500 microns, which is, oh gosh, it's 1.5 millimeters. And the reason I'm using that is because that's literally what I've got. I had it as an offcut from a book that I made yesterday. It's kind of middle thickness. So why not? I don't want to waste it. Okay, so let's pop that on there. Right, so now, ooh, some glue, and I'm going to add this onto my base piece. So let's pop that on there like that. Make sure we can still see Santa's face. Make sure it's all lined up properly. Just have to lift that up so I can see. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so that's my Santa. I am really tempted. I did cut out his boots, and I'm kind of tempted to add those on. In fact, I think I will. So I'm just going to cut around this bit. Let's just ink that up a little. And let's put a little bit of greyboard on the back of his boots. Now I've also cut out lots of bits out of his sack, so I can layer those up as well. So let's just pop that little boot on there, and let's pop that little boot on there. Okay, so you can see now that he's starting to really stand out, and my plan for the front of my my book is that I'm going to have him on some sort of paper. I haven't decided which one yet, but I think it'll have to be quite a plain paper just to make him stand out. Then I've got a frame for him here. Now I am really tempted to make this into a shaker pocket. That is the plan, but I'm just aware that some bits and pieces might you know, like sequins might get stuck underneath where I'm gluing, so I'm still thinking on that one. So what I've got for the rest of my pieces here, let's have a look, is I've got these lovely images from his sack. So I'm going to layer those up as well and pop those on. So you can just use every single little bit that you've got left over. It's just such a good way to use up your odds and ends. Recycling at its finest, I think. That one's going to be tricky because it's tiny. see what I've got. Okay, so let's pop that onto here. I was going to put that on, but actually I don't think I am. I think I might just cut the block. Just ink that edge. Pop that one on there. Some on the back. It's a bit disconcerting, isn't it? It's Hunter's face. Ooh. Right. That one. And a square for there, and I think that will almost do it. See if we can't put a little spot on there and a little spot on there. Just be careful to cut it so that you don't, when you turn it over, you don't have any bits showing. Okay, so some glue on there. Actually, could do the bit on there, couldn't I? Ha! Here's one I made earlier. And let's layer that on top like that. So now I've got a really 3D Twas the Night Before Christmas Santa image, which is going to make a really cool front for my mini. So that, like I said, will go on there with some sort of background paper. I've got my frame, which I need to layer up twice, I think, if not 3 times, just to be sure. But that is quite a striking image for the very front of the book, I think. Layering up, I just love the effect of it. Actually, I'm going to put these on as well, but I'll do that off camera. And I thoroughly recommend that you do this with any graphic 45 paper because it's just perfect. It just lends itself to 3D stuff so much. So I want to talk about the front cover and I want to talk about the shaker pocket because we need 2 of these. They are slightly different, but if I just explain to you about what I've done. I have cut from quite thick chipboard, so I think it's about 2¼ millimeters thick. I have cut 5 squares at 7 inches. These are all 7 inches square, okay? And I've then cut a frame inside each of them, and that frame is 3/4 of an inch. So I have 5 pieces of very thick chipboard which are 7 inches square with a 3/4 of an inch frame. What I've done then is I've divided them into 2 piles. One has 3 pieces, one has 2. And what I've done is I've glued them together, one on top of the other. So one is marginally thicker because it's got 3 pieces, the other one has 2. Once I've done that, I have covered the edges of them inside and out. I've used a special sort of tape to do that, but you can do it with, you know, any sort of construction tape. You can do it with bits of cardstock, or you could even paint it. But you're going to need 2 of these. The one that has 3 layers, that is going to be for the very front cover of our Trifold Folio, and then the thinner one, the one that is 2 pieces thick, that is going to be the one that we use for the frame for our shaker pocket. Okay, so rather than make this a super long video explanation of how I've put this together, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you now how to make the front cover and how to make the shaker pocket. They're both exactly the same, we just add different things. So this is the front pocket that I'm going to do, the front kind of like design. So what I've done is I've taken, here's my front cover, and here is some pattern paper, which I've cut at 6 7/8 of an inch square. Okay, and what I'm going to do with this is I am going to place it on my front cover. Now I've put some really thick, wide, double-sided tape on the back. So I'm just going to try and get that off, which is always easier said than done, especially when, like me, you don't have any nails. I might have to resort to getting my knife out in a minute. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to place this right in the middle of my front cover, or if you're going to do your shaker pocket, that would be this bit here. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that I'm putting that in the centre and as straight as possible. Okay, so that goes on like that. Now I think it's really important to adhere that first, because you need it to be stuck really, really well to the surface that you're going to be putting your images on. So on my front cover, I explained that with the shaker pocket, the reason that I'm not doing this as a shaker is because we've laid this up now. We've had a discussion about layering this up. I think if I start putting my sequins and stuff on, I'm really worried that the sequins are going to get stuck and it's all going to be a bit of a horrible mess. So I'm just going to decide where I'm going to place that. Now on my shaker pocket, what you'll notice is that I took one of the images from the cut apart sheets, cut that out, and I stuck that on. In this case, it's going to be our 3D Santa. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some wet glue, and I'm going to make sure that I stick this every bit down to my cover. Now, the nice thing about using wet glue is that I'm going to have a little bit of time to reposition. So if I just put him where I think I want him to go, let's go for there, and then I put my cover on top, I can see that actually I probably need to move him about a little bit. So if my cover goes there, which is centralised, let's just have a look at my Santa, make sure that he all fits in there, and that's all fitting on quite nicely. So let's just have another look, make sure that he's nice and centralised. Yeah, so let's stick him down to the back. Okay, so now here's where I want him to be. I can pop my cover over the top there just to make sure that that's in the right place. That's where I want it to be. I might have to just move him back up a little bit. Let's have a look there. And then if I want to add any extra pieces on here, so I know that this was like the signature page piece, if I want to add any extras on, then I can do that around. So long as I'm fitting them in my frame, then that's all good, and that's what I want to do. Okay, so I've made up my image here for the front. I've got my Santa, I've just added a little bit here, and I've got this little mouse popping out his head now. So what I want to do is I want to add on my frame. So I'm going to do that by putting plenty of wet glue on the back of my frame, and then I'm going to use just my standard clips, bulldog clips, binder clips, whatever it is that you call them, just to hold that in place while this dries. Now, if I was making a shaker pocket, what I would do would be, once I've got this frame glued on, and I've got all my images in place underneath, I would then simply sprinkle on my sequins. Let's have a look, let's get this in the right place. I would simply sprinkle on my sequins and make sure they are where I want them to be. And then we finish this off in exactly the same way. So I've got all of my clips here. I'm going to just clip this down in place whilst the glue dries. On this great big clip, which means that my wire is going to come down. Oh, let's get that out of the way. There we go. It's a great clip. Make sure that sticks. Need a few more big ones. So once I've got this all clipped up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it to dry 100% before I come back and I work on putting my front acetate cover on, dust cover I suppose for want of a better description. There we go. So that is going to hold all of these in place whilst the glue dries, and then we can come back and have a look at finishing it off. Okay, so now this is all nice and dry, so I have got my nice deep frame there. I've got my layered up Santa on the front, and now what I need to do is protect this, and the way that I'm going to do it is I am going to add an acetate cover. Now if this was a shaker pocket, what I do is I put my sequins and such like in there now, and then I'm going to use some very, very strong double-sided tape. Now this is what I call polyester tape. It's like the red tape but stronger. So as much as I don't like using tape on books, this does seem to work really, really well to keep acetate in its place. It's so sticky that it's covered in cat hairs, despite the fact it's being kept in a box away from the cats. So obviously if you're using this as a shaker, you need to make sure that, you know, all of your edges are absolutely enclosed. It's not so important when you're not doing a shaker. So now I've got that on, I'm going to take off the backing. The other thing I like about this as well is it's not all staticky like, you know, red tape generally is. Okay, and then here I've got a piece of acetate. Just make sure that it hasn't got stuff all over it. I've got a piece of acetate that I cut that is just under 7 inches square, and I am now going to lay this down on top like that, and that will protect my picture going forwards so it doesn't get caught on stuff. And then as you can see here inside, what I've done with my shaker is I have just cut some little pieces, some narrow strips of pattern paper, and I have added those to the outside to cover up you know, this bit of the frame, which you can see. I'm going to do some more adding to the front cover, but for now I'm just going to put my pattern paper on here, and that will do for now. So come back and we will continue in a moment. So one of the things that I like to do with projects is to have some sort of charm or drop on the side. So on this space here on the side of the book, we've got quite a bit of a drop there. You know, a space there. So I would like to add on a charm holder, and I have taken some of these gorgeous chipboard pieces and I've made a charm. I'll come on to that in a minute and how I did that. But I would like to attach this charm holder on here. Now I could do that, and if I do that, it's going to show right through here, and I'm not sure that that's really what I want to do. So my solution to this problem is I take a piece of greyboard, chipboard, call it what you will, and I cut a piece that will fit over here. I then cover it in pattern paper, and then I put my charm through that. I then glue that whole thing on, and you don't get anything showing through, and it adds a little bit of interest. So that is what I'm going to do now. Now I know that this is what, 1 3/4 by 7.5 inches, as I recall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a piece of thin greyboard. It doesn't have to be thick at all. I think I had some of the very, very thin 1000 micron. Let's see what I've got here. So I'm going to cut a piece that is, let's go for 1 1/4 inches, because that's the same size as the spine on the opposite side. So I'm going to go for 1 1/4 inches, And I'm going to do another one that is 3/4 of an inch, I think, maybe to go on the other side. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that yet or not. So 1 1/4 and 3/4. So let me just cut that down. I can't see. Okay, 7 1/2. I bet I've just covered, yeah, I've just cut the bit that I measured off. So just do that again, 1 1/4. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to find some pattern paper, and I'm going to cover that. I'd like to use the red again, so if I just cut that down. Let's put some double-sided tape. Try and get it straight as possible, because it is straight on the other side, because we've got our lines. We need to make sure that that's straight, otherwise we will notice. Let's miter these corners. Not sure where I have put my bone folder, so I'll use this bit of chipboard. A bit of tape to hold it in place. Okay, let's turn that over. So what I want to do now is put my charm holder on. This is a really nice one, dead easy, because it's just a brad. So if I work out where the middle is, 1 1/4 is going to be, do this in millimeters. About there. So let's make a hole big enough to put the brad's legs in. Pop that through like that. Make sure that's stuck down. So now I've got this piece that is going to be much easier to stick down onto this here. So that is going to sit on there. It covers up where I've joined the cover back on, and it just gives a really nice clean finish. So now if I just get some wet glue, actually I might put a little bit of double-sided tape on just to hold it a little bit. Let's just pop some on there, and then plenty of wet glue. I think I better go and get myself some new glue. Okay, and let's pop that there with, make sure you've got your brad at the top or your charm hanger at the top, because you don't want it to be upside down. Of course, I speak from experience. So I'm just going to grab myself a couple of my clips. And I'm just going to clip that, oops, to stick whilst I chat to you about how I've put the charm together. So let's just leave that to one side. Now the charm, in the Deluxe collections, or any of the collections actually, we always get these really lovely chipboard pieces, and what I do with them is I cover the back. First of all, my little secret weapon tool of the trade is a nail file, and what I do is once I've got these little chipboard pieces, I just use nail file just to get rid of those little, I think you call them chads, those little nodules that you get on the side that attach them to the chipboard. So once I've done that, you've got a choice. You could ink the edges or you could paint them if you wanted to. I just leave mine as they are, and then I glue them down onto some pattern paper. Leave that to dry, and then once it's dry, I cut around the pattern paper, use my nail file again just to make sure that I've got into all the nooks and crannies, so that I can just have you know, a piece of paper on the back that looks like it was, you know, all there all the time. And then I've inked around the edges. Once I've done that, I've grabbed myself some chain, just so this is just basic jewellery making chain, and I've cut different lengths of it, and I've then attached my charms to that, okay, like that. So when they're hanging down, you know, they'll all be at a different level. Just make sure that when you're you know, putting yours together, that you're not making it too long, because I've done that a few times as well. And then I'm just going to attach this to this brad here. Now the one thing that I say is, once you've done that, you do actually have a choice. You could put some ribbon through, you know, you don't have to leave it just plain as it is. You could put ribbon through, you could, you know, add all sorts of bits and pieces. So let me just grab these so that I can close that back up. No expert here, no expert at all. Okay, and then I've got my charm on the side of my book, and it just fits, so I'm going to leave that to dry for a little bit longer, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to have completed this, and I'm going to show you how I put my final decoration together. So thank you for bearing with me this far. What I'm going to do now is just finish off this video by just taking you really quickly through the book and show you the little bits that I've added to it, just to kind of decorate it a little bit more. Well, we've made our charm and we've got our side pieces on, and I've decorated up the back as well, just nice and simple. What I've done is on the front here, I've used one of the sticker sheet bits. I've added that onto a little bit of black cardstock, and I've added that at the bottom because I do like a title. And then here all I've done is I've fussy cut some of the holly shapes, and I've just added those around the outside. I've then mirrored that on the inside here on my shaker pocket, which you can see I've done the same here with some words added onto a little bit of cardstock, and I've got a couple of the cutter parts that I've just decorated on both sides, which then go into this, which I'm using as a tuck spot. Like I said, holly around the edges. With regard to the inside cover, I've just decorated that up, and I've added in some photo mats, just simple ones like that, and like I said, I've used a lot of the cutter parts because they're just so gorgeous on this collection, and they are added in there. What I didn't do, that I did kind of mean to do, is on things like these pieces here, I was going to add in a little bit of twine, but I didn't quite manage to do that. So on the inside here again, here you can see I've added in some of the stickers. With regard to the waterfall, I've just covered that in pattern paper, and I've added in one of the cutter parts here. I've just put plain white cardstock on the back to act in lieu of photos. With regard to my bits here, all I've done is, once again, I have matted one of the cutter parts. I've got some cutter parts here plus some photo mats that I've made. All of the instructions and sizes for that are in the cutting guide. That goes inside there. Same here, I've made a little pocket on top of this pocket, and I've popped some of the cutter parts in there as well, and the same on that side. I've put some of the stickers onto my photo mats as well, just for a bit of added interest. So that is my version of the leveled up Trifold Folio. I have to say I love this. It's one of my favourites, and I didn't even make it. Brilliant. So thank you very much for joining me. I'm sorry it's been a little bit disjointed, but I realised as I was going through and filming that there was probably a more logical order for you to do the video in. So I hope that you've enjoyed it. If you have made one yourself, then do add it into the Graphic 45 community page, because we always love to see what you're making. And thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you guys really soon with another project. Bye.